Consider everything you know about your life, your world, your very self. Now I tell you this, it is all an illusion, a temporary arrangement you agree to believe in each morning. Every single night, the very consciousness that you call I departs from this physical form. You leave this body behind as one might leave a house, and you travel into dimensions of pure being where the limitations of this world do not apply. You return at dawn, picking up the costume of personality and circumstance, forgetting your journey and mistaking the costume for the actor. What if the reality you cling to is not solid, not ultimate, but merely the projection of a consciousness still half in dream? What if your true existence is not confined to this body, this history, these worries that seem so real by daylight? We are here to pierce that veil. We are here to remember the nightly journey and to bring that knowledge into the waking state, transforming our experience of life from the inside out. This is not a philosophy to be debated. It is a truth to be lived, a recognition that will set you free from the bondage of appearances. If this resonates with the deepest truth within you, I urge you to take part in this sacred fellowship. Subscribe to this channel as an act of committing to your own awakening. And below, in the comments, place the number F7 as a symbol of your readiness to move beyond the 7 days of ordinary life into the eternal Sabbath of conscious union. Consider the weight of your head upon the pillow each night, that final surrender as the thoughts of the day blur and fade. In that moment, a profound and silent exodus occurs. The awareness, the very I am, that reads these words does not simply go to sleep. It disengages. It steps out. The body, magnificent and intricate instrument that it is, remains a vessel now empty of its captain, breathing automatically, repairing itself, but uninhabited by the central consciousness that gives it meaning and identity in the waking hours. You know this experience not through doctrine, but through its shadow. Have you ever awakened suddenly, perhaps from a vivid dream, and for a fleeting, disorienting second, not known where you were, or even what you were? In that gap, before the mind rushed in to label the room, the bed, the body, there was a pure point of awareness, unlocated and free. That is the faint echo of the return. Or consider the mystery of the alarm clock. You set it for 7000 a.m., and at 60:59 you are in a deep, dreamless void. At 7000, you are abruptly back, conscious and already thinking. Where were you in the instant before the sound? You were nowhere that a clock can measure, because the you that is real was not inside the mechanism of flesh and bone. It was on its journey home. This is the great secret hidden in plain sight within the common act of sleep. We believe we are this composite of memories, desires, and physical sensations, a continuous narrative from birth. But every night, that narrative is cleanly interrupted. The consciousness that you truly are leaves the premises. It withdraws from the senses. The eyes see nothing, the ears hear nothing of this world. The tactile sense of the mattress vanishes. You are absent. Where does it go? It returns to its source, to a state of unformed, unconditioned being. It swims in the infinite, free from the burdens it will reassume at dawn the mortgage, the identity as a parent or a professional, the acres, the plans, the entire story of a life. Think of the body then as a sophisticated spacecraft. All day, you, the astronaut, are inside, looking through the viewport of the eyes, manipulating the controls of the hands, speaking through the communication system of the voice. You become so engrossed in the instrument panel, the feelings, the thoughts, the sensory data, that you forget you are the operator within. Then comes the mandatory mission rest period. You do not merely nap at the controls. You disembark. You float freely in the vastness of space, connected to the ship by a lifeline of pure being, but untethered from its confines. The ship, on autopilot, maintains its systems. But the essential you is out there, in the boundless, weightless, silent reality that is your native element. This understanding dismantles the most fundamental and fearful assumption of human life, that we ever are these bodies, and therefore subject to their inevitable decline and final extinction. If consciousness leaves every night and returns every morning, what proof have we that it is generated by the brain? Is the radio generating the symphony, or is it merely receiving and translating a frequency that exists independently? The brain may be the exquisite receiver, the biological instrument through which consciousness experiences a physical universe. But the broadcast itself originates elsewhere. The nightly departure is the proof. The instrument remains, but the music stops. The musician has left the stage. This is why the waking world feels so solid, so persistently real. We return each morning and immediately, automatically, plug back into the receiver. We tune back into the station of physicality, of separation, of time and space. We put on the familiar costume, the personality, the history, the set of reactions, and within moments, we have forgotten our journey. We believe the costume is us. We believe the signals being received are the only reality. The thrill of the dream, the profound peace of deep sleep, the sometimes startling creativity that arrives upon waking, these are mere souvenirs, poorly remembered fragments from our travels in the formless. To grasp this as your actual experience, not as a theory, is to feel the ground shift under your feet in the most liberating way. It means the constraints you feel, the limitations you chafe against, are not ultimate. They are properties of the craft, not of the astronaut. The grief, the anxiety, the sense of lack, these are signals on the panel, not conditions of the operator. When you begin to suspect, then to know that your essential self exits this scenario each night, you can start to question its solidity each day. You can observe the drama of your life with a new, quiet wonder, knowing the actor is eternally free, even while fully engaged in the play. The fear of death loses its grip, for you realize you practice a miniature death and rebirth every 24 hours, and you always return refreshed from a journey into a reality far more fundamental than the one you left behind. Consider then the profound implication of that daily return. You come back, you re-enter the senses, you inhabit the form. And what is the very first thing you do? You reach for the identity you left on the nightstand. You pick up the concerns, you button yourself into the role, and you agree, once more, to the rules of the world you see. This is the silent, invisible, and total agreement that constructs what you call reality. It is a collective pact made anew each morning to perceive separation, solidity, and scarcity as the fundamental truths of existence. But they are not truths. They are terms of an agreement, a story we have all consented to tell, and more importantly, to believe. Walk into your kitchen. You see a solid table, a hard floor, a fragile glass. Your entire being agrees with this assessment. Your senses confirm it. Your past experiences of stubbing a toe or dropping a dish enforce it. But what you are perceiving is not the ultimate nature of these objects. You are perceiving a consensus reality, a narrow band of vibration interpreted through the agreement of your physical senses and the collective human mind. Science itself tells us the chair is mostly empty space, a field of energy appearing solid due to forces and perception. Yet you cannot sit on the idea of empty space, so you agree to its solidity, and it holds you. This is the power of the agreement. It builds your world from the ground up, from the moment you open your eyes. This construct is most visible in what we call problems. You believe in a financial limitation, and your entire perception organizes around evidence of lack. You believe in a sickness, and every sensation becomes proof of the body's fragility. You believe in animosity from another, and their every glance confirms your story. The condition itself may have a seeming reality, but its power, its weight, its tyranny is granted entirely by your agreement to its terms. You have signed a contract with the appearance, and now you feel bound by its clauses. Yet the consciousness that left last night, the true I, was bound by no such contract. It existed in a state prior to agreements where no problem has any form. The thrill, the shocking liberty, comes when you realize you can re-enter the waking world, but choose consciously to withhold your signature from the old agreements. Observe a child immersed in imaginative play. A cardboard box is a fortress. A whispered secret is a powerful spell. For the child, in that moment, it is utterly real. The agreement within the game creates its own reality, complete with rules and stakes. Yet an adult walks into the room, operating under a different agreement, the agreement of utility, of cardboard and triviality. The adult's reality seems more solid, more real. But is it? Both are constructions of thought and agreement. The child can be instantly pulled from his game by the call for dinner. The spell is broken because his agreement shifts. Your waking life is the same. The moment you withdraw your agreement from the construct of a problem, its spell over you begins to dissolve. It may still appear, as the cardboard box still appears, but its meaning, its power to define your experience, is severed. We see this collective agreement in the very fabric of society. Money is paper and metal, yet we agree to its value, and it moves empires. A border is an invisible line, yet we agree to its sovereignty, and it dictates where you may freely walk. These are monumental fictions, held in place by nothing more than sustained collective consent. Your personal reality is built on the same principle, but with more intimate materials, your agreement to your age, your capabilities, your past traumas, your future fears. You have built a house of agreed upon thoughts and called it yourself, and you live within its walls, mistaking the architecture for the sky. The practice, then, is to become a conscious dissenter within the agreement of the waking world. This does not mean denying the appearance of the table, but denying its ultimate authority over your peace. It means feeling a pain in the body without agreeing to the story of degeneration. It means facing a bank statement without agreeing to the narrative of doom. You meet the appearance, but you do not sign its treaty. You hold within you the knowing of the traveler, the one who leaves every night and knows this place is not the whole of existence. From that vantage point, you engage with the world lightly, like an actor who knows the play is not real, yet performs with full commitment, free from the terror of the script. The world will still present its scenes, the challenging colleague, the unexpected bill, the bodily sensation. But your inner agreement is no longer with the drama of separation. It is with the silent, ever-present consciousness that observes the drama, that uses the form, but is never contained by it. You live in the world, but you are no longer of its agreement. You have remembered the clause in the fine print that states all terms are null and void in the light of your true, unbounded nature. This conscious descent from the world's agreement is not a retreat into abstraction. It is, in fact, the beginning of the most practical journey you will ever undertake, the journey into formless being. If consciousness can and does leave the form each night, traveling to a state unbounded by time, space, or the problems of the day, then that state is not a distant heaven. It is your native land. It is the foundation of what you are, and it is accessible not only in sleep, but in the very midst of your waking hours. This is the great secret. You do not have to wait for the night to know this freedom. You can, through a shift in recognition, tap into that formless being right now, while your eyes are open and your hands are engaged in the tasks of the day. Consider the space between your thoughts. In a moment of sudden awe, seeing a staggering sunset, hearing a piece of music that pierces your heart, holding a newborn, the constant chatter of the mind stops. For a fleeting second, there is just pure, silent awareness. In that gap, you are not thinking about your identity, your past, or your to-do list. You simply are. That is not an emotional reaction. That is a crack in the agreed upon reality through which the light of your formless being shines. That sensation of vast, peaceful presence, utterly devoid of form, is not caused by the sunset. The sunset merely provided the occasion for your agreement with the mental narrative to lapse, and in that lapse, your true state is revealed. It was there all along underneath the noise. Think of your awareness as the sky. Your thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations are the weather passing through that sky, clouds of worry, storms of anger, bright sunshine of joy. You have spent a lifetime identifying with the weather, believing you are the storm cloud or the gentle breeze. The journey into formless being is the profound recognition that you are the sky itself, the silent, boundless, unchanging space that holds all weather, yet is never damaged, altered, or defined by it. The clouds come and go, the sky remains. Your problems are weather. Your body's sensations are weather. Your thoughts are weather. The formless being you are is the aware space knowing it all. You cannot touch, measure, or describe the sky. You can only be it. So it is with your essential nature. This is why profound insights often arrive when you are not trying. In the shower, while driving a familiar route, in the quiet exhaustion after a long day, the mind's grip loosens, and a knowing bubbles up from the formless deep. A solution to a problem you've wrestled with for weeks appears, whole and complete. A forgiveness you could not muster suddenly flows effortlessly. This is not the linear mind at work. This is the intelligence of your formless being, the consciousness that travels at night, communicating into the world of form. It is accessed not by harder thinking, but by a gentle cessation of agreement with the thinking mind's turmoil. You let the weather rage, and you rest as the sky. To make this tangible, try this while reading these words. Notice the feeling of your body in the chair. Notice the sounds around you. Now, turn your attention not to the objects of awareness, but to the awareness itself. Who or what is knowing these sensations? Do not try to answer with a thought. Simply feel back into the knowing. You will not find an object. You will find a spacious, alive presence. That is the threshold. That is the formless being, already here, already awake beneath the layers of your agreement with a solid self. In that moment, you are doing what you do every night. You are disidentifying from the form. You are taking a momentary journey inward to the source. This practice dissolves the apparent solidity of your challenges. A gripping fear arises. Instead of agreeing with its story and becoming entangled in the storm of thoughts and physical tension, you feel the fear as a pattern of weather within the sky of your awareness. You give it space. You do not fight the cloud. You acknowledge it and remain as the sky. Something miraculous then occurs. The fear, having no agreement to feed upon, no solid opponent to define itself against, begins to lose its coherence. It may not vanish instantly, but its power to define your reality is broken. You are no longer in the fear. The fear is in you, the vast and formless you. This is how you bring the night's freedom into the day's demands. You cease to be a prisoner of form and become the conscious witness of it, the silent traveler who is never truly confined, even while fully present. This conscious evidence as the sky, however, confronts the very engine of the human dilemma, forgetting. We touch that spaciousness, we have a moment of clear knowing, and then, like a dream upon waking, it slips away. We forget the sky and become entranced once more by the storm. This forgetting is not a personal failure. It is the ancient, automatic rhythm of a consciousness that has agreed to experience itself as separate. It is the root of all bondage because it causes us to believe the weather is all that exists, and in that belief, we give the weather absolute power over our sense of being. We forget we are the traveler and believe ourselves to be the cramped confines of the vehicle. You see this forgetting play out in every moment of suffering. A sharp word is spoken to you. For a flash, there is just the pure sound, the vibration in the air. Then, in an instant, the forgetting activates. The machinery of agreement roars to life. That was meant for me. That is an insult to my person. This is who I am, someone disrespected. The vast, silent awareness that could have witnessed the sound as mere weather is instantly eclipsed by the constructed self that feels attacked. The bondage is not in the word. It is in the swift, unconscious agreement to the story that follows, the hypnotic plunge back into the dream of separation. You have forgotten your true size and have shrunk to the dimensions of a reaction. Consider the phenomenon of waking anxiety. You open your eyes, and before you even recall your name, a free, floating dread sits in your chest. What is it? It is the residue of forgetting in its purest form. It is the feeling of the limitless consciousness, having returned from its journey, suddenly contracting and agreeing to be a limited entity facing a world of threats. The anxiety has no specific content yet. It is the visceral shock of the agreement itself, the feeling of the infinite putting on the straitjacket of the finite. Throughout the day, your mind will rush to provide content for that feeling, your job, your health, the news. But the root was the primal act of forgetting who you truly are upon re-entry into the world of form. This is why spiritual teachings so often speak of remembrance. It is not about acquiring new information. It is about stopping the active, habitual forgetting. It is about inserting a pause between the event and the agreement. Someone cuts you off in traffic. In that pause, even if it lasts only a second, you have a choice. You can follow the old habit of forgetting, of instantly becoming the affronted ego, the body tensed with rage, the mind narrating the injustice. Or, in that pause, you can remember. You can feel the grip of the steering wheel, see the red of the brake lights, hear the sound of your own breath, and know this is all happening within me, the aware space. This drama is weather. I am the sky. The event may still occur, but you are no longer in bondage to it. You have broken the spell of forgetting, if only for a moment. The entire world, in a sense, is designed to make you forget. Its pleasures are meant to make you agree that satisfaction comes from form. Its pains are meant to make you agree that danger resides in form. Both are hooks for the same forgetting. The chase for success and the grip of failure are two sides of the same coin of amnesia. You forget you are the boundless presence for which success and failure are merely passing patterns, interesting experiences, but never definitions of your being. Practice, then, is the gentle, persistent art of remembering. It is the inner whisper, I am not this thought, this feeling, this sensation. I am the knowing of it. It is catching yourself in the act of forgetting, and in that very catching, remembering. You do it when you are stuck in a long line and irritation begins to rise. Feel the irritation as a clenching, a tightening weather system. Then remember, here is forgetting. I am agreeing to be a person being delayed. But I am the space in which this delay is happening. The irritation may not vanish, but it is now held in a vaster context. It loses its sting. You have loosened the bonds. Each time you remember, you wear a groove out of the prison of automatic agreement. You are training yourself to live from the place you visit every night, bringing the freedom of the formless into the density of the formed, not by fighting the world, but by ceasing to forget what you are in the midst of it. This art of remembrance is the precise tool that pierces the veil of physical appearances. It is not a philosophical conclusion you reach. It is a sword of discernment you wield in the marketplace of daily life. The world screams of its solidity, its urgency, its absolute reality. Your senses are relentless witnesses for the prosecution, testifying to the hard edge of the desk, the sharpness of the pain, the undeniable presence of lack or conflict. To speak of this as a veil feels like madness or denial. Yet, the very fact that you depart from it each night reveals its insubstantial nature. A veil is not nothing. It is a subtle obstruction that hides the source of light. The physical world is exactly that, a magnificent, detailed, and convincing veil that hides the radiant, formless reality of pure being from which it derives its only semblance of substance. Watch a movie in a theater. You are seated in a comfortable chair in a room with others. Then the lights dim, and a beam of light projects through a series of rapidly changing images onto a blank screen. Suddenly, you are no longer in a room. You are in a war zone, a love story, a distant galaxy. Your heart races, you weep, you feel tension. The appearances on the screen command your full emotional belief. For those 2 hours, that projection is your reality. Yet, at any moment, you could turn your head and see the beam of light, the dust motes dancing in it, the blank screen. You could remember the mechanism. Piercing the veil is that simple, profound turn of the head. It is shifting your attention from the compelling drama on the screen to the source of the light and the screen itself. Your daily life is that projection. The beam of light is the infinite consciousness you are. The screen is the receptive field of your awareness. The story is the agreed upon world of form. Take something as concrete as your own body in the mirror. You see lines, you see weight, you see age. The appearance speaks a convincing story of decay, a narrative headed in one inevitable direction. This is the veil in its most intimate and powerful form. To pierce it is not to deny the reflection, but to refuse to grant it ultimate authority. It is to look at the hand, not as a solid, aging object, but as a temporary formation of intelligence, a dancing pattern of energy held in a specific agreement of form by the consciousness that observes it. When you have a pain, the veil is the immediate conclusion. I am sick. This body is failing. Piercing it means meeting the sensation with a deeper question. To what is this pain appearing? What is the nature of this awareness that knows the pain? You look not at the appearance, but from the source of all appearing. The pain may remain as a sensation, but its meaning is transformed. It is no longer a terminal verdict on your being. It is a passing condition within the field of your being. This piercing is what turns ordinary moments into portals. You are washing dishes, feeling the warm water, seeing the soap bubbles glisten and pop. For a moment, you are lost in the chore. Then you pause. You feel the aliveness in your hands, the play of light on the water, and you inwardly ask, what is it that is aware of all this? Instantly, the choreography of form, the dish, the water, the hand, is seen not as separate, solid objects, but as a seamless, flowing expression within your own awareness. The veil of separation thins. The activity continues, but you are no longer just a person doing dishes. You are the boundless space in which the dance of form and fluidity is happening. You have pierced from the level of effect to the level of cause. The world's drama loses its power to terrify when you see it as a masterfully produced play. The news report of conflict, the personal betrayal, the financial reversal, these are gripping scenes on the collective screen. To be enmeshed is to believe the scenes are the only reality. To pierce the veil is to feel the profound peace of the awareness that watches the screen, that provides the very light by which the scenes are made visible. This does not make you passive or indifferent. It empowers true action, action that stems not from the frantic reactivity of the character in the drama, but from the calm, intelligent clarity of the one who knows the drama is not all there is. You engage, but you are not entangled. You care, but you are not consumed. You see the veil for what it is, a beautifully complex, often challenging projection of the one infinite consciousness that you are, appearing as many, playing the game of separation, but forever yearning, through your own longing, to remember its source and see the light through the image. This is the culmination, the lived truth that transforms existence from a sentence to be served into a field of conscious union. To know yourself as the sky behind the weather, as the light behind the projection, is not to escape the human experience, but to fulfill it. It is to live from your eternal nature while fully participating in the temporal dance. The appearances of the world, the body, the relationships, the successes and losses do not vanish. Instead, they are transfigured. They cease to be masters to be obeyed and become instruments to be experienced, expressions of the one life playing in the infinite variety of form. You no longer seek to change the dream from within the dream. You abide as the dreamer, awake, and the entire dream becomes harmless, even beautiful in its poignant impermanence. You see this shift in the most grounded moments. You sit across from a loved one who is speaking of their fear. The old agreement would pull you into the story, into the shared anxiety, into the mental labyrinth of solutions. You would be two separate entities trapped in a problem. but living the truth of your eternal nature. You listen from the vastness. You hear the words as sounds. You see the emotion as a passing weather on their face and in your own heart, and you hold it all in a silent, spacious awareness that does not judge or panic. From this place, your response, whether it is a word, a touch, or simply a peaceful presence, does not come from the separate ego's toolkit. It flows from the intelligence of being itself. It is the right and healing action, not because you calculated it, but because it is the natural expression of wholeness meeting an appearance of lack. You are not fixing a separate person. You are being the peace that recognizes itself in another form. This is how you engage with your own body's inevitable changes. The mirror still reflects the aging form, but you are no longer a prisoner looking out from behind those eyes, condemned by time. You are the ageless witness, the consciousness that has worn many forms, enjoying the unique texture of this one, its wisdom, its softened edges, its very maturity. Atches may arise, but they are not greeted as betrayals. They are felt as sensations moving through the field of awareness, interesting in their intensity, but utterly incapable of diminishing the vastness that holds them. You care for the form with a tender detachment, as a musician cares for a beloved instrument, knowing the music is not in the wood and strings, but in the life that plays it. The instrument will wear, but the musician is eternal. Consider your work, your daily tasks. Perform from the old agreement. They are often burdens, means to an end, proofs of your worth or lack of it. Perform from the truth of conscious union. They become sacred movements, expressions of the infinite organizing itself in time and space. Washing a dish, writing a report, planting a seed. Each action is met with your full presence, not because the action is important, but because your presence is the reality. You are not doing the task to achieve a future state of peace or success. You are bringing the peace of your eternal nature to the task. The pressure to get somewhere evaporates. You are already home, and you are simply functioning from that home in the world of forms. The work may become more efficient, more creative, or it may not. That is irrelevant. What matters is that you are free within it. This is the secret to facing loss. When a form you love, a person, a possession, a situation, is taken from the visible world, the pain of separation can be acute. It is the weather of grief, and it must be allowed to storm. But beneath it, lived from this truth, is an unshakable knowing. The consciousness that you are and the consciousness that they are have not gone anywhere. The form of the relationship has simply changed. The love you felt was never a transaction between two separate entities. It was the one consciousness recognizing itself in another. That recognition is eternal. It cannot be broken by the rearrangement of forms. You mourn the veil, the beautiful, particular projection, while abiding in the light that projected it. You live without the security of any permanent form, anchored instead in the only permanence there is your own undeniable, ever-present being, which is the being of all that is. This is not a belief. It is the direct result of having pierced every veil, of having remembered each time you forgot, until finally you remain as the awake space in which the entire heartbreaking, glorious dream of life unfolds, knowing itself at last forever free. Consider for a moment a staggering possibility. Everything you call your consciousness, every thought, feeling, and perception of a self having an experience is not real. It is a magnificent, persuasive, and utterly convincing illusion constructed by the brain you believe you possess. This is not a theory to be debated, but a doorway to be entered. We have been mesmerized by the activity of the mind, believing its chatter to be our own. We listen to its fears, its desires, its endless commentary, and we call this living. Yet what if this entire parade is a shadow? What if the very instrument we use to examine life is the same instrument that hides the truth from us? What your brain does not want you to realize is that there is something prior to consciousness, something silent and ever present that is being filtered into the experience of you. We are about to journey beyond the illusion, to look not at the contents of consciousness, but at the very canvas upon which they appear. This requires a radical shift from thinking to knowing, from analyzing to beholding. What we will uncover together transcends philosophy and psychology. It points to the very nature of being itself. If this resonates, if you feel a pull to look beyond the veil the mind has drawn, then your participation is not merely welcome, it is essential. Subscribe to this channel as a sacred commitment to this inner journey, a vow to turn attention from the world of effect to the realm of cause. And below, comment the number own, not as a digit, but as a symbol of the single, indivisible reality we seek to remember. We have been taught to trust the voice in our head implicitly, to believe its story about who we are, what we have done, and what we must fear or achieve. This inner narrator, with its relentless commentary, judgments, and ceaseless planning, forms the very core of what most people experience as their conscious self. It feels so intimate, so personal, that to question its reality seems absurd. Yet, this is the precise location of the grand illusion. This stream of thought is not the source of your being. It is a constructed narrative, a sophisticated after. The fact interpretation generated by the brain to make sense of the boundless, silent awareness that you truly are. Think of it this way. You are sitting in a room, and the air is perfectly still. Then, a complex series of fans and projectors are switched on. Suddenly, you see a breathtaking light show. You feel gusts of wind from different directions, cool and warm. The show is so immersive, so convincing in its patterns and stories, that you become completely captivated by it. You begin to identify with the dancing lights and shifting breezes, believing them to be your own essence. You forget the still, silent, and vast space of the room that holds it all. The fans and projectors are your brain's sensory and cognitive processes. The captivating show is your conscious experience, your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of a separate self moving through time. But the room itself, the silent, allowing space, is what you are prior to the show. The brain does not create awareness. It creates the content that appears within it. This becomes evident in those precious gaps between thoughts, if you watch closely. In the moment after a deep laugh subsides, before the mind rushes in to label it. In the split second of awe, when witnessing a stunning sunset, where there is just pure seeing before the thought. This is beautiful, arises. In that instant, you are there, aware and alive, but without the story of you being present. That is a taste of the canvas before the painting. But the brain, as a magnificent meaning-making machine, cannot abide such emptiness. It immediately rushes in to claim the experience, to narrate it, to file it away in the autobiography of me. It says, I am happy, or that sunset is mine to remember. This claiming is the construction of the conscious narrative. It takes the raw, impersonal fact of awareness and dresses it in the costume of a person. Consider your daily life. You are driving a familiar road, and suddenly you realize you have no memory of the last few miles. The body operated the vehicle perfectly. Awareness took in the sights and sounds, but the thinker, the narrator, was absent. It was lost in a daydream about a future meeting or a past conversation. Who was aware during that drive? It was not the thinker, for it was elsewhere. It was a silent, pervasive presence that requires no thought to exist. The moment you wake up to the fact you were daydreaming, the narrator returns with a jolt, claiming the entire episode. Oh, I was on autopilot. But it wasn't you on autopilot, it was the as narrator that was temporarily offline. The real you was never absent. This constructed narrative is what suffers. It is the voice that feels anxious about a future that is not here, that regrets a past that is gone, that feels offended, proud, or needy. It creates a world of separation, me versus you, mine versus yours. We believe we must heal, improve, or satisfy this self to find peace. But peace is not found in satisfying the voice. It is found in realizing you are not the voice. You are the one hearing it. When a painful thought arises, like, I am not good enough, the entire mechanism of suffering depends on your unconscious agreement with the narrator. You believe it is reporting a truth about you. But what if you could see it as merely a flicker in the conscious show, a passing cloud in the sky of your being? The cloud is not the sky. The painful thought is not you. The moment you recognize this, the thought may still appear, but its power to define reality dissolves. It loses its gravitational pull. You are no longer trapped inside the story. This recognition is not an intellectual conclusion. It is a profound shift of attention from the content on the screen to the screen itself. The screen does not care if the movie is a tragedy or a comedy. It holds all images without being damaged or changed by them. Your true nature is that screen-aware, silent, and ever-present. The brain's job is to produce the movie of your particular life. It is a masterpiece of biological storytelling. But you have mistaken the character's journey for your own totality. The thrill, the absolute wonder, begins when you start to live from this understanding. When a strong emotion surges, you can feel it fully, yet a part of you knows this is a storm in the atmosphere, not in the space that holds the atmosphere. When a critical thought about another person arises, you can see it as just more content, a fragment of the narrative, allowing you to respond from clarity instead of reacting from a programmed story. The narrative continues. It is the brain's ancient function, but it no longer has the final say. It becomes a practical tool for navigation, not the master of your existence. If the narrative of consciousness is the captivating movie, then the brain is the intricate projector. Its entire purpose is to translate an infinite, unfiltered signal into a coherent, limited, and personal experience. It is not a creator, but a filter, and a necessary one. Imagine trying to stare directly into the sun. The brilliance is too much. It would overwhelm and blind the instrument trying to perceive it. So, you must use a filter, like a piece of smoke glass, to reduce the radiance into a form you can safely observe. In this metaphor, the sun is the boundless, impersonal reality of pure being, the infinite intelligence and life that is the source of all. Your brain is that piece of smoke glass. It does not create the light. It selectively blocks it out so that a specific, manageable image can be formed. This filtering is what produces the world of separate objects, of time and space, of a me here and a world out there. It obscures the infinite by translating it into the finite. It turns the symphony of all, that is, into a single, understandable melody line. This is not a flaw, but a function. We could not operate in this realm of form without it. The problem, the source of our deep existential confusion, is that we have become entranced by the filter itself. We believe the tint of the glass is the true color of the sun. We worship the projector and forget the light. We are like a scientist who becomes so obsessed with the lens of their microscope, polishing it, studying its scratches, noting its distortions, that they completely forget they are supposed to be observing the life teeming on the slide beneath it. The brain, with its thoughts, senses, and memories, becomes the sole object of our study, and we call this consciousness. We believe that by understanding the filter, we will understand reality. But all we will ever understand are the limits we have imposed upon it. You encounter this filtering every single day, yet you mistake it for reality. You look at a tree. What do you experience? Not the tree, in itself, in its unimaginable fullness. You experience a visual representation constructed by your optic nerves and visual cortex, a shape, a color green defined by the limitations of your retinal cones. You experience the concept, tree, loaded with memories of climbing one, the word you learned as a child, cultural associations of strength or nature. The brain presents you with a neat labeled and manageable package, tree. It has filtered out the overwhelming truth of that living organism, its constant molecular exchange with the air and soil, the silent hum of its biological processes, its unbroken connection to the entire field of life. The filter makes it usable for navigation. Walk around it. It provides shade. but in doing so, it obscures the miracle. This filtering is most profound and tragic when applied to your sense of self. The infinite, unbounded awareness that you are gets filtered through the brain's database of personal history, social conditioning, and biological drives. What comes out the other side is the character you play your name, your resume, your ackies, your desires, your story of victimhood or success. The brain takes the vast, silent I am and narrows it into the noisy, fragile, I am John, I am 42, I am worried about my mortgage, I am proud of my children. We then spend a lifetime trying to decorate, defend, and satisfy this filtered character, believing its survival and enhancement is the purpose of existence. We are trying to polish the lens, hoping it will finally let the true light through, not realizing the polishing itself is the activity that maintains the obscuration. The thrill comes when you begin to notice the filter at work, and in that noticing, you get glimpses of what lies prior to it. It happens in moments of shock or supreme beauty when the brain's narrative machinery short-circuits. When you receive sudden, devastating news, there is often a split second of pristine, silent emptiness before the storm of grief and thought descends. In that instant, the filter failed. The raw reality flooded in, too powerful for the brain to immediately process into a story. In moments of awe in nature, standing before a crashing ocean wave or under a canopy of dizzying stars, the mind sometimes stops its chatter. The concept-making apparatus is overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the input. For a breath, you are not a person looking at the ocean. There is just the all-ing. The filter becomes temporarily transparent. These are not mere emotional experiences. They are moments of pure, unfiltered being. They feel like home because, for a flicker, you are a home. You are not looking at reality through a lens. You are the reality that is being looked from. The practice, then, is not to destroy the brain or the filter. That is impossible and unnecessary for human experience. The practice is to cease identifying, ask the filter, to watch its mechanics with gentle detachment. When a bitter thought arises, you can learn to see it not as my truth, but as a fragment of data processed through the filters of past hurt and future fear. When a powerful craving grips you, you can feel the biological and psychological machinery wearing, translating the infinite piece of your being into the finite, desperate story of, I need that to be happy. By witnessing this process, you slowly, irrevocably shift your identity from the filtered image to the source of the light. You begin to sense yourself as the vastness that holds both the filter and its products. You realize the brain doesn't want you to realize this because its entire purpose is to manage the finite. It is a magnificent servant, but it makes for a terrifying master when you believe its filtered report is the final word on what you are. The journey is from being a prisoner inside the projector, staring at the wall of your own projections, to being the silent space in which the entire theater, projector, light, and show peacefully appears. If the brain is a filter and consciousness its narrative, Then who is it that is aware of this entire process? Who is the one noticing the thoughts, sensing the filter at work, and glimpsing the silence behind the noise? This is the great pivot, the turn from the objective to the subjective that changes everything. That which is noticing cannot be the thing it is noticing. You are not the thought. You are the awareness of the thought. You are not the feeling. You are the space in which the feeling arises and subsides. This is not a philosophical position to adopt, but a direct fact of experience to be verified in this very instant. Your true identity lies beyond, prior to, and untouched by the thinking mind. The mind is a content within you, but you are not a content within the mind. You are the context for all experiencing. We spend our lives, however, in a profound case of mistaken identity. We have been hypnotized by the activity in the mirror, believing the reflections to be the source. It is as if a crystal clear pool of water became so fascinated by the clouds, birds, and branches reflected on its surface that it forgot its own nature as depth, stillness, and transparency. The wind comes, stirring the surface into chaotic waves, and the pool believes, I am troubled, I am chaotic. But the depths remain unmoved. Your thoughts and emotions are the weather on the surface. Your true being is the depth that knows no storm. You can see this play out in the most ordinary moments. You are in the middle of an intense, stressful day. Deadlines loom, phones ring, demands pile up. The mind is a torrent of planning, worrying, and reacting. This is the choppy surface. Then, perhaps, you step outside for a moment. You feel a cool breeze on your skin. For just 1 or 2 seconds, your attention is pulled completely into the sensation of the breeze. In that moment, the mental chatter stops. There is just the feeling. Where did you go? The stressful thinking you vanished. But were you absent? No. You were more vividly present than ever, as the pure sensation of coolness, as the alive awareness receiving it. The stressful person was a story the mind was telling. The aware presence is what you actually are, and it was there all along, beneath the story, simply waiting for a gap in the narration to be recognized. You are not the frantic thinker. You are the knowing that is aware of the frantic thinking. This is why all attempts to find permanent peace, love, or security through the mind are destined to reach a limit. The mind is a realm of opposites, joy and sorrow, success and failure, praise and blame. To seek your identity in it is to be on a pendulum. When the mind says, you are successful, you feel exalted. When it whispers, you are a failure, you feel crushed. But are you actually coming and going? Are you being created and destroyed with each passing thought? No. You are the consistent, unchanging witness to both the exaltation and the crushing. You are the screen upon which both the triumphant and the tragic scenes are played. The scene affects the characters in the movie, but the screen is not scratched by the drama. Your work is not to change the scenes to your liking, though life will move you to act, but to remember you are the screen. This realization is the ultimate stability. Observe how the mind immediately claims this awareness as another object, Another thought. It says, so I am awareness. That is the final, most subtle trap. The I in that sentence is still the mind pretending to be the watcher. The true knowing cannot be captured in a thought. It is the unseen seer. It is what is looking out of your eyes right now before any label is applied. It is the silence that hears the thought about silence. To approach this, you must stop looking for an experience called awareness, and instead notice what is already, always present. What is here before you decide to think about your job? What is here after a memory fades? That background presence, like the hum of a refrigerator you only notice when it stops, is not a thing. It is you. The mind's world is one of things, good things, bad things, my things, your things. Your being is the no thing that gives all things their reality. When you begin to abide here, even in glimpses, life transforms not by changing its content, but by changing the context. A pain arises in the body. The old context, identification with the mind, would immediately weave a story. This is terrible. What if it gets worse? I can't handle this. Suffering compounds the sensation. The new context, resting as the aware presence, allows you to feel the raw sensation with a startling intimacy. You can say, there is tension here, or there is a throbbing sensation. You feel it without the catastrophic story. It may still be intense, but it is no longer personal. It is simply a phenomenon appearing in the vast field of your awareness, like a cloud in the sky. The sky does not resist the cloud. It holds it, and in that allowing, there is a profound and paradoxical freedom. The sensation is no longer happening to a fragile self. It is happening within you, the boundless space. This is not dissociation. It is the deepest possible engagement, free from the filter of fear. You are not a character at the mercy of the movie's plot. You are the theater itself, the silent, welcoming space that makes the experience possible. And that space cannot be harmed, cannot be added to, and cannot be lost. It is what you have always been, desperately seeking yourself in the ripples on your own surface. This shift in context, from the ripples to the ocean depth, from the thought to the awareness, demands a complete transformation in how we engage with the world. It is not about acquiring a new philosophy, but about a radical change in the mechanism of knowing itself. We are conditioned from birth to rely on the thinking mind as our primary tool for understanding. We analyze, compare, deduce, and conclude. We believe that by thinking about life, we can understand it. But this is like using a teaspoon to measure the ocean. The instrument is not wrong for its purpose. It is fine for measuring sugar, but it is utterly incapable of containing the vastness before it. To know the truth of what you are, you must shift from mental analysis to silent knowing. This knowing is not intellectual, it is an immediate, intuitive recognition, a beholding without the intermediary of thought. It is the difference between reading a passionate love letter and feeling the touch of a lover's hand. One is a description, a symbol pointing to an experience. The other is the experience, direct, wordless, and whole. The mind is a tool for navigating the world of time and objects. It is linear, sequential, and thrives on problems and solutions. It lives in the past and the future, constantly referencing memory to project what comes next. But your true nature exists only in the eternal present, a dimension the mind cannot comprehend, only obscure. Think of a time you were utterly absorbed in a creative act, perhaps painting, playing music, or even fixing something with deep focus. In those moments, the inner critic, the planner, the worrier, falls silent. There is just the flow of action and perception. If a thought arises, it is not about you. It is about the next brushstroke, the next chord. You are not thinking, Eraz, about the activity. You are one with it. The mental analyzer has stepped aside, and in that vacancy, a deeper intelligence operates. This is not you thinking your way through. It is life thinking itself as you. This is a taste of silent knowing. The moment you step back and think, I am really in the flow now, you have left the flow and are once again analyzing an experience from the past. The mind has reasserted itself as the commentator. This is why all our seeking through books, lectures, and concepts ultimately reaches a cliff's edge. They can prepare the ground, they can point the finger, but they cannot give you the experience. The experience is found only in the cessation of seeking, in the quieting of the very instrument that seeks. It is found not by adding more knowledge to the mind, but by subtracting your identification from it. You do this not by force, but by gentle, relentless attention. For instance, you are waiting in a long line, and the mind is impatient, grumbling about wasted time, generating stories of frustration. This is mental analysis at work, comparing the present reality to a preferred one and finding it lacking. The shift to silent knowing begins with a simple, almost physical, turning of attention. You feel the weight of your body on your feet. You listen to the ambient sounds not as annoyances, but as pure vibrations. You notice the play of light on the floor. You are not thinking about these sensations. You are as feeling them directly. In that moment, the complaining narrative loses its fuel. It may sputter on in the background, but you are no longer residing in it. You are residing in the simple, undeniable ness of the moment. The line has not moved any faster, but your relationship to the experience has transformed from one of resistance to one of simple presence. You have stopped analyzing the moment and started knowing it from within. This silent knowing is how you begin to perceive the reality of others, not as separate characters in your story, but as expressions of the same presence you are. When you look at another person through the mind, you see a collection of labels, their role, their behavior, their threat or value to you. This is analysis, and it builds walls. But in a moment of silent knowing, perhaps when you truly look into the eyes of a loved one, without any agenda, or even a stranger in a moment of shared humanity, something else happens. The labels soften. There is a direct perception of the life looking back at you. You are not seeing their personality. You are meeting the presence animating the form. This is love without an object. It is recognition. It is the silent knowing within you acknowledging itself in another. Conflict cannot exist in this space, for it sees no true other to conflict with. It sees only itself, perhaps temporarily lost in a painful story, and its natural response is compassion, not defense. The thrill of this journey is that it unburdens you from the exhausting task of figuring everything out. The mind is a magnificent servant, but a tyrannical master, constantly demanding you solve the unsolvable puzzle of a self that does not, in truth, exist. Silent knowing is the peace that comes when you lay down that impossible task. It does not mean you stop using your intellect. It means you use it when needed as a practical tool, and then let it rest, returning to the deeper clarity of your being. You will find that from this silent ground, thoughts arise that are clearer, actions that are more compassionate, and perceptions that are more accurate, because they are no longer distorted by the frantic needs of a fictional self. The mind, when not claimed as me, becomes a faithful instrument of the infinite intelligence you are. You begin to live not from memory, but from inspiration, not from the calculated past, but from the spontaneous, creative present. The question is no longer, what should I think about this? But, what is the reality of this prior to any thought? The answer is never a word. It is a state of being. It is the space in which the next right action, the next clear word, can effortlessly emerge, not from a conditioned past, but from the alive and silent fullness of now. This profound sense of separation, the lonely I, at the center of a universe of others, is the fundamental ache from which all lesser suffering springs. It is the root, and all our conflicts, fears, and longings are its branches. We believe this separation to be the most real thing about us, the solid, undeniable fact of being a discrete self in a body looking out at an external world. Yet, this is the central and most persuasive illusion generated by the filtering brain. The illusion of separation is not just a philosophical error. It is the very mechanism of suffering itself. For if you believe yourself to be a fragile, isolated entity, then everything in the cosmos appears as a potential threat or a possible source of fulfillment. Your entire life becomes a project of defense and acquisition, an exhausting game where peace is always one more victory away and peril is always lurking just around the corner. This is not an abstraction. It is the texture of daily anxiety. You feel a tightness in your chest before a difficult conversation. Why? Because the mind has constructed a story where you, a separate and vulnerable self, are about to confront another, separate and potentially hostile self. The body reacts to this imagined story of two islands clashing as if it were a physical reality. The suffering is not in the conversation itself, it is in the deep, seated belief in the reality of those separate islands. Or consider envy. You see a colleague receive praise you desired. The sting you feel is the painful friction of separation. The story is one of me, here, lacking, and them, there, possessing. The mind measures the gap between these two imagined separate entities and the result is a sense of personal diminishment. Even our most cherished relationships are often haunted by this ghost of separation. We speak of my partner, my child, and in that possessive love, there is a subtle fear of loss, a constant monitoring of whether this other is meeting the needs of the self. The underlying assumption is one of division, and from that, neediness and control inevitably grow. But what if the separation is a trick of perception, a convincing hologram projected by the brain? Consider the experience of true empathy not as a thought, but as a visceral feeling. You witness someone you love in profound grief. For a moment, your own mental narrative stops. You do not feel pity for them from a safe distance. You feel the ache in your own chest. Where does your pain end and theirs begin? In that moment of shared feeling, the boundaries blur not because you are confused, but because you are touching a deeper truth, that awareness, that capacity to feel, is not boxed into individual skulls. It is a unified field, and individual minds are like whirlpools in a single ocean, distinct in pattern, but not separate in substance. The ocean in one whirlpool is not different from the ocean in another. The suffering arises when the whirlpool believes itself to be only its own swirling pattern, forgetting it is ocean. Your personal whirlpool may be calm today, while another is turbulent. But to believe you are only your local weather is the root of both indifference and personal anguish. When you begin to glimpse this, the entire motivation for living shifts. The drive to protect the fragile, separate self starts to lose its urgency. This does not make you passive. It makes you truly effective, because your actions are no longer fueled by the frantic energy of fear and lack. You can still act to defend your body from harm or improve your circumstances, but you do so from a place of clarity, not from the terrified conviction of being a lonely fragment under siege. It is the difference between a soldier fighting from a desperate, personal hatred and a surgeon performing a precise, necessary incision. One is consumed by the story of separation. The other acts from a connected understanding of a larger whole. You can practice seeing through this illusion in concrete ways. Next time you feel irritation towards someone, perhaps a stranger who is rude to you, pause. Observe the story the mind is spinning. He is disrespecting me. I do not deserve this. Feel the heat of that separate self feeling aggrieved. Now look more closely. Can you see the behavior of that other person as simply the output of their own conditioning, their own fear and suffering? Their whirlpool is turbulent. It is casting out waves. Your whirlpool is reacting. But can you, just for an instant, drop beneath the story and sense the shared turbulence itself? Not hiss, anger, and me hurt, but simply the raw energy of conflict playing out in the field of awareness. In that shift, you are not condoning the behavior, but you are disarming its power to define your reality. You are no longer an isolated target. You are the space in which the entire interaction is occurring. From that space, a response may arise that is calm, firm, and perhaps even compassionate, rather than a reaction that merely perpetuates the clash of separate selves. The ultimate thrill, the greatest liberation, is the slow, sure unraveling of the lie that you are alone. It is the realization that the peace you have sought through relationships, achievements, and acquisitions was never outside you, because what you are has no outside. The sense of lack that haunted you was the ghost of the separate self, a shadow cast by the filter, not a reality of your being. As this illusion dissolves, life does not become perfect, but your relationship to it becomes whole. Actions flow from connection, not from calculation. Love is not something you give or get from another fragment. It is what you are, and it radiates without an object. The world may still appear as forms in conflict, but you will know yourself as the silent, unified presence in which even conflict arises and resolves, forever untouched, forever at home. This is the end of seeking, because you realize you are what was sought. All the pointers, the glimpses, the intellectual understanding, they are but maps. And as the saying goes, the map is not the territory. You can study the chart of the ocean for a lifetime, noting every current and depth. But until you surrender to the water itself, you will never know wetness, buoyancy, or the ocean's true power. This is the final, necessary step, moving from theory to direct experience. Conceptual knowledge about the illusory self is a candle in a window. It shows you the direction, but it cannot warm you. Direct experience is the fire on the hearth. It is not something you have, but something you are, and it reveals the impersonal presence as the only reality, the very substance of your being and of all that appears. We often mistake intense emotional or sensory experiences for this revelation. A moment of sublime beauty, a peak of joy, a deep meditative stillness, we grasp at these, hoping to crystallize them as proof. But these too are objects within consciousness, however subtle. They come and go. The direct experience we speak of is not an experience, among others. It is the very faculty of experiencing itself, stripped of all content and identity. It is what remains when you are not adding anything to the present moment, no interpretation, no memory, no desire for it to be other than it is. It is the raw, naked fact of awareness prior to the thought, I am aware. This is not a mystical trance reserved for the mountaintop. It is available in the chaos of the supermarket aisle if you know how to look, or rather, how to cease looking with the mind. Consider a moment of sudden, unexpected pain. You stub your toe sharply. In the first instant, before the mental storm, there is a flash of pure sensation. There is no me stubbing me toe. There is only a brilliant, undeniable explosion of feeling. For a nanosecond, experience is utterly impersonal. Then, like a lightning-fast editor, the mind rushes in. Oh no! That hurt! I am so clumsy. It personalizes the event, claims it for the character, and initiates suffering. That first, pristine flash was direct experience. It was the impersonal presence, conscious and vibrant, knowing itself as the sensation. The pain was not happening to anyone. It was simply happening, and awareness was one with it. The suffering began with the return of the personal pronoun. Your work is not to seek more flashes, but to widen that gap between the raw experience and the mind's claim of ownership, to abide increasingly in the impersonal knowingness that is their source. This is why all techniques eventually must fall away. Meditation, prayer, mindful breathing, these are splendid for quieting the mind's noise, for creating a clearing. But in that clearing, you must then stop doing. You must simply be. You must allow the presence that you are to recognize itself. It is like polishing a mirror until it is spotless. The polishing is the practice, but the clarity that allows the room to be reflected is not an action. It is the mirror's natural state when the obscurations are removed. The impersonal presence is that mirror. It is already clear, already whole, already reflecting the entire show of your life. You are not trying to become the mirror. You are ceasing to identify with the dust. You can invite this recognition in the midst of any activity by asking a simple, profound question, not with the mind expecting an answer, but as a sinking into the unknown. Ask, what is it that is aware right now? Do not accept a thought as a response. Thoughts will arise. It's me. It's consciousness. I don't know. See these as more objects appearing. Look back toward the source of the looking. Feel into the space behind your forehead, the emptiness out of which your vision seems to flow. You are not looking for a thing. You are turning awareness upon itself. It may feel like a kind of collapsing, a falling backward into a vast, peaceful emptiness that was always here. In that recognition, there is a profound thrill, a silent ah that carries no words. The room you are in, the sounds you hear, your own body, they do not disappear. Instead, they are suddenly perceived as appearances within you. They are like waves on the surface of your own deep, silent being. You are not in the room is in you. The thinker is not having thoughts. Thoughts are floating in the aware space that you are. Living from this is the ultimate freedom. It means the end of taking anything personally. Criticism, praise, loss, gain, they are all weather patterns in the atmosphere of experience. The impersonal presence registers them all with perfect clarity, but is defined by none of them. It means you can engage with life more fully, more passionately, because you are no longer protecting a fragile identity. You can love without fear of loss, because the love you express is not a limited resource belonging to a small self, but the overflowing nature of the presence itself. You can act decisively without the paralysis of self-doubt, because the action arises from the intelligence of the whole, not the calculations of a fragment. This is not a state of perpetual bliss. It is a state of unshakable peace, a bedrock reality upon which the full spectrum of human emotion plays without threat. The impersonal presence is not cold or distant. It is the warmth of the sun shining indiscriminately. It is the intelligence behind your next thought, the life force animating your body, the silence at the heart of every sound. To realize this is not to become superhuman, but to finally become fully human. To be the conscious space in which the human experience unfolds, no longer mistaken for the character in the drama, but awake as the boundless, silent, and loving presence that gives the drama its light and its life.